talk to me about how you explain what JoyInc does to someone who's never heard of it. And afterwards, talk to me about why it was even important to have something like this.
Okay, so it's interesting you asked me this question. So, because JoyInc has become something else. I just handed over to a new CEO this month.
What?
And we just did a soft announcement a few weeks ago. And JoyInc is no longer the company that I formed it to be. So what you're asking, but I'll answer the question about what JoyInc was before we changed it. And honestly, the answer is I don't know what it was. And I mean that. Honestly, I was doing a fellowship at Yale. I had quit my job as CEO of Red Media. Well, yes, I had put in my letter as CEO of Red Media, which is a company I founded, but I realized I didn't want to lead Red Media anymore, which was where Sheyi, who founded this event, was working. She was my brand manager at Red Media Africa. But I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew I didn't want to keep doing this anymore. Yeah? So 2 years after, I go on a fellowship at Yale. I'm studying, I'm speaking with the professors, I'm visiting the library, I'm all of that. And then I discover what I want to do for the rest of my life. I want to teach people how to be happy. This is my decision in Connecticut, if that's the pronunciation of the state. And I decided, okay, so now we've decided, so I have clarity as to what I want to do with the rest of my life. Now, how do you explain to people that will think you are mad? I don't know. What should it be? Will it be a company? I'm like, but who is going to pay for this? Will it be a not-for-profit? But I don't like not-for-profit. Would it be software as a service? I'm not a fan of technology. So these are real issues. Yes, I'm not a fan of technology. You need to know how technophobic I am. So I'm not on WhatsApp, I'm not on Instagram, I'm not on anywhere. And then I'm always very suspicious of solutions that start from when somebody says we are going to create technology for, I'm like, this is a scam that is about to land. Of course it's not. I'm exaggerating. So I'm trying to show you how my mind was thinking. I didn't have a format, I didn't have a platform, I didn't know how it was going to make money. And so I was searching for how to register it, and I didn't plan to come back to Nigeria. I thought I was going to go to America. I'd been offered a job in academia. And then I thought, so I decided, okay, this is what I want to do. So I go and Google, okay, how are other people doing it? And I discovered there's something called a benefit corporation in America, which is not a business, it's not an NGO, it's the heart of an NGO with the engine of a business. And I think, okay, this feels about right. So I go and register JoyInc in America. And then a month after registering it, I decided, no, I have to go back to Nigeria. And so and I think the crux of the answer to that, which just hits me now, is that sometimes you don't know what it is you are doing, right, and you don't know what it is you want to do, and that's fine. Especially if you're not at home just lounging thinking, I don't know what to do, I'm waiting for the Holy Spirit. If you don't know what to do, but you are actively engaged in the world, there's something that Bishop T.D. Jakes always says. He says, if what you are doing is not what you are supposed to be doing, then what you are doing will lead you to what you're supposed to be doing. And so that was it. I'm telling you, I'm looking at the revenue of the business now, because we have a new CEO, we are looking at the books, we're looking at how much value has been generated a lot of money has been generated, and we're thinking, oh wait, I didn't even know what the business model was. So now I'm only looking at the business model, because you hire a CEO, you have to show the business model. So I'm like, oh, what I even thought the business model was is not what the business model is. At this point, we realize that the entire business website has to change. Because in just going into the world and figuring my way out, a model made itself, And so I think that there's something very important. There are a lot of things I thought I knew before 2017 that I know are wrong now, which is there's absolutely nothing wrong in not knowing what it is you want to do, as long as you are committed to figuring things out.
I do have a follow-up question, because I think that's interesting, but I want us to do a quick intro. We have the country manager for Truecaller. Can you please clap for her? I thought just like you to do a very brief intro of yourself. Just tell us what you do real quick.
Okay, thank you. My name is Ogo Onwuchekwa. I currently serve as the country manager for Truecaller in Nigeria. My background has mostly been in sales, business development. I'm a core career girl. I don't know what I'm doing here because this is supposed to be for founders, right? I've never founded anything, but I think maybe the value I can bring is, just how to bring in structure and my own experience as well. I've always known I'm meant to be a career girl. My first job at Zenith Bank, the very first day I came, I was checking how to pick up the CEO of Zenith Bank the very first day. So that's how ambitious I've always been. Yeah, that's just me in a nutshell. So, but again, I've also launched a couple of businesses here in Africa, Truecaller being, I think, the third one. So yeah, I know a little bit about scaling, going into African markets, and a little bit of that. But great to be here. Thank you so much.
You said you're not sure why you're here, but in that intro, you've already given us like so many reasons for what we can learn from you, just in terms of setting up operations, expanding outside, I guess, expanding to other markets and so on. But I want to real quick just come back to you today because I have like a follow-up question. It's very interesting that you say it has changed because a lot of my questions were about the JoyInc that we know. But I think something interesting you talked about was for the longest time we felt like we weren't even sure what the model was or what it was exactly that you were doing. So how did you get people to buy into what it was that you were doing? How were you like explaining it to them? And what were the challenges that you faced getting people to buy into it, especially knowing that you yourself didn't have a model, you weren't sure?
Okay, so this is what it is. JoyInc, when I started it, was a company to do what I wanted to say. I wanted to create media and teaching products that will help people live more joyful lives. That was what it was. But again, my story is a bit different because I was already I had a company, ready me. So for the 2 years, I didn't have to worry about how to eat. Like I was, so I could really. So I had the company was doing well. It's one of the top PR companies in the country. So that was kind of so I had a bit of luxury to figure out what I wanted to do next. I just tried out some products. We had the Joy Masterclass, we had the Joy Retreat, and all of that. And so those things were bringing in revenue, but not a lot. Also because I was also in the stage of my life, having come from PR, when I was not interested in marketing, the art of selling to people. I just didn't want to do it. So they were making money, but not enough to build a real business around. And then with Chude was launched. Now with Chude was recorded in 2018, but I didn't release it until 2020 because I was again convinced that Nigerians would not watch this show because I thought you have to remember that when I started with Chude, there was no Honest Bunch, there was no Ife Dang, it was a different time, and so there was nothing. The only podcast Nigerians were really listening to, if at all, was I Said What I Said. And so I thought Nigerians are into the era of skits making and Afrobeats. You're coming with this deep show that's talking about suicide, and nobody has time for this rubbish. This is literally what I said for 2 years. So people kept saying, release the show, and I'm like, no, there's no model for it, 2020, it was a spiritual thing. I said, okay, I'm going to release the show finally. I still didn't know how it was going to pay for itself. I didn't have any advertising, nothing. Now, how did we truly start making money? Literally, I guess. So for 2 years, the sum total of the advertising revenue we got for the first 1 year was 6 million naira. Yeah? And then one day, I guess, an activist called Pamela Adie comes on my show and says she had a short film. But she wanted people to respect her talent. So she put it on her website, even though she didn't think people were going to pay for it. And then just so that they will respect it, she didn't want to put it for free on YouTube. And I said, oh, there's an idea, talking about wanting to build a tech stack. So I said, okay, but I don't want to build a platform, And so I said to my digital lead at the time at Red, because Red was helping me with some support services. So I said, is there a website where you can put this content without us needing to build a website? And so she comes back and says, there's a site called Vimeo. So I'm like, okay, good. Put it up on Vimeo. Nobody's going to pay for it, but it doesn't matter. All these people that keep telling me, I wish I had a place to watch your show, I'd have an excuse to say it's on this site. She comes back to me after 1 week, we have $1,000 in sales. I'm like, what were we selling? It's like my TV show. the end of the month, we have the subscribers keep growing. We have subscribers in a month, we have subscribers from 34 countries. And the thing starts growing. That's how we came up to a model. So I'm not just saying this thing to be contrarian or to kind of be funny. That's how with Chude. So as of 2023, we stopped talking to advertisers, or 2022, because advertisers will come to us, they'll tell us, change the content like this, change the content like that. They'll say, we want it to reach the youth. But I'm like, but these people that are commenting on Insta blog, what are they? They are the youth. It's a popular show. And if I'd listened to them beforehand, which today would not be the way it was. So that's the original JoyInc model. Now what happened, quickly, is that as JoyInc started growing, organizations started reaching us to do content for them. The Gates Foundation, all of those. And so we entered into documentaries because they saw the quality of the Chude storytelling. Yeah? And so because of that, the company now evolved into a production company and a media services company. So much of our revenue in the past 3 years has come from documentaries, trainings for media leaders, an incubator we are doing in collaboration with the Co-Creation Hub, trainings for the Gates Foundation in Dakar, Senegal this year. That's what it became. So it just became, I'm doing my work, I'm talking to people about my work, they see other ways that they can engage the work. I realized that I've moved away from my mission of making people happy. So I'm like, okay, I'm doing the way I'm happy because we're making money. So at that point, I realized, okay, no, but I quit my job in Red Media to do something specific, and now I'm distracted. So I'm like, but now there's a business model. This is now a real business with bucket loads of profit. So at that point, I decided, okay, I need to hire a CEO for this and now return to my mission of trying to make people happy. That's how we got here.
So it seems to me like it was just a lot of you experimenting, trying new things, trying to figure out what was going on. And in experimenting and trying new things, you stumbled upon, a couple of models that just worked for you. So it wasn't like you started with, this is exactly what I'm going to do, I know it. It was just figuring it out and trying out all kinds of things until something stuck.
Precisely. Without even knowing that. Yes, precisely.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting. Let's see if it applies to non-media related. So I want to go to you, Kehinde. My question for you is, Zoho is a global company. Nigeria is, and as I imagine, other markets are very, very unique markets. In scaling and in expanding to Nigeria, what did you have to tweak? I guess this is an odd question, but again, did you have to tweak the product, or how did you tweak your strategy to adapt to the Nigerian market? Because I'm sure the reality of what is happening in Sweden and other countries is not in Nigeria. So what were those things that you had to, I guess, to make it easy, what were the unique patterns that you discovered in the Nigerian market that didn't exist in the global market, and how did you tweak your strategy to fit the Nigerian market?
All right, thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. All right. Unfortunately for me, I have two people on my team. They are sitting here. Because what I'm going to say, they probably don't know about it. So, but they will go with that information and they will keep it to themselves. Say yes. All right. So I joined Zoho in 2019. I was in India at that time. Then I joined in 2019. And then the first month I resumed in the India office. Then I did my onboarding, orientation, and all of that. And I'm like, we can bring this product to Nigeria. So that was the first thing I had in my mind. So I took my time to actually understand technology. I had my background in commerce. So I did commerce, right? Then I took my time. It took me 1 month to understand 55 applications. So how to develop, how to customize, how to do all of that in 1 month. And then COVID happened. Now, I was like, okay, let me go back to Nigeria. I mean, it was bad in India. I came back to Nigeria. Then I was supposed to go to Dubai and probably stay in Dubai. And then they locked there was a shutdown, like the airport thing, it did not work. So, and I was pissed. Honestly, I was really angry. A Nigerian guy, you want to go to Dubai and settle down, start a life, corporate setting. And that was when it clicked in my head that I'm here now, I'm stuck, let me start working. And then I started to realize that a lot of business owners in this country, they are not even aware that you can use software to optimize the way you run your business. It's not about them not knowing what type of software to use. They are not even aware that they can actually use software. Then we have a CRM tool. I went through it. I'm like, okay, I'm going to start calling these people. So I started calling. I was the only one. And in 2020, towards the end of the year, the role country manager was created for me. Zoho does not have a role called country manager. So it was in the year 2020, they created the role. They're like, okay, Kenny, you are here, we'll make you our country manager, just employ one more person to join you. So that role was created for me. Now, by extension, right, I had to train people in Kenya, in South Africa, in Egypt, in Saudi Arabia. So we started expanding into other African regions. Now, it's a multinational company, don't forget that. So which means they have a standard we have to follow already. To do marketing, budgeting is very crazy. To get them to understand that doing business in Nigeria is not as easy as it is in India. And then one of the other problems we have in this country is the buyers. It's from India. When you say it's an Indian company, they'll be like, Indian company. So I found myself trying to defend the company for the first maybe 40 minutes of my presentation before I even get to the point where I have to sell the product. Now, after selling the product, they will not be like, oh, wow, you can do all of that. I'm like, yes, we can. Now, there is uniqueness in Nigerian market, which is where the face of the brand is very important. Now, when they pick up the phone, they are calling India, communication, all of that, and I'm like, oh, no, we can't be doing that. Call me, right? I get people on my team. So we started setting up Nigeria office. There are some models that we tried that did not work, right? Because we're a private company, Zoho is privately owned. There is no investor, there is no debt, there is nothing. So they've been maintaining that, and we are very frugal in spending. So, which means you will not see us, we want to fund something, we want to pay for this, or we want to do elaborate billboard and all of that. So, as at 2020, 2021, we couldn't do any marketing. In fact, Tayo is here, we used to pay like 500,000 naira to sponsor events. Anything above that, I can't go beyond it, But then we have to change. We need to change the story. We have to change the story. We need to start working with people that understand what technology is all about. So which is why we are focused more on partnership now. So I started doing partnerships. So let me partner with this person. So we're working with maybe federal government, state government, in IT, startup ops, anything, we work with them. So that is how we've been able to scale gradually. And now I think I can say that Zoho is that company that happens to you and you don't see us coming. You don't see us coming. We just creep in on you and you be like, oh, you guys are here now. And it's been really, really great. All right? And the model in Nigeria, I also edge the Ghana, West African market and Central Africa market. And I can tell you that because it's working in Nigeria, it's working in those countries. It's working in those countries. For example, last year, our revenue in Ghana is really, really amazing. I'm like, we didn't really do anything in Ghana. I only went there once to do one event and speak and come back. We had good revenue in Ghana, but because it's working in Nigeria, so they believe because it's working in Nigeria, it will work for them. You get? So it's a spillover of the activities we're doing in this Nigeria that is spilling over to Ghana, Côte d'Ivoire. I don't speak French. But when I go to Côte d'Ivoire and I'm like, okay, I get an interpreter, we just go for meetings, and then you see how they are ready for technology. And also post-COVID, there is an increase in the understanding that you cannot do any business without software. So ordinary email is very important to a full-blown CRM system, right? And then when you have the software that you can use to help you establish those things, then also we now bill in Naira. So we remove your dollar exposure and all of that. So that's the icing on the cake.
Yeah. So interesting. So what I'm hearing is, in terms of just moving to Nigeria, it was first you even understanding the Nigerian markets and how people are not aware they can use software to improve their businesses. And you mentioned having to actually call people to pitch and to tell them that this is, like you were essentially, I don't mean door to door literally, but you were doing that. And it was also, I guess, as opposed to sponsoring events, throwing money, you were partnering with companies
Yes.
to work with them. And I guess finally it was just trying to replicate similar models in West Africa, since we are in quotes brothers. Like if it was in Nigeria, I might as well just work in Ghana.
Yes.
Okay, that's very, very interesting. So you're not going overboard when you're scaling regionally. You're taking a stealth mode essentially. That's what I'm hearing. Is that a fair thing to say?
Yes, and it's actually very correct. When we say we don't spend on marketing, we do a lot of digital marketing right now. But then our approach 2020, 2021, 2022 to 23, when people ask me, can you do this? I'm like, no. You know what? Let's create value, right? So what had helped us in the last 2 years is our customer telling people to go and use Zoho, not necessarily what we are telling our clients. So if you come to an event and you have a customer at our booth asking about, oh, okay, and we have a new client, they'll be like, oh, you're not using Zoho? No, you have to use Zoho. So we've been able to create value in the last 3 years. So now, when we are doing billboard, bus wrapping, people can say, oh, these guys, oh, I know them, I use them. But if you don't know them, if nobody's using us, that is just a waste of money to me. You get what I'm saying?
No, I totally get what you're saying. In the early days, it's better to understand the markets, understand the people, get them to buy into it, as opposed to going for splashy marketing campaigns that are not able to convert. Okay, I have a similar question for you, but I think mine is more from I'm curious about like when you're trying to, because again it's a global company and then this is you in Nigeria, were there any Nigeria specific patterns that proved to be challenging for your growth and scale, especially maybe in relation to data privacy? Because I think, and maybe even data privacy regulations, because Nigeria, we still have like some struggles there.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Like I said when I was opening, Truecaller is like the second or the third company I'm bringing into Africa. So I'm going to be switching my experiences because I've done B2B and B2C, and they're two different ball games. They are two different things. Because in B2C, you're looking to gain millions of people. You want to be a household name in the country. So the play for B2C is entirely different. And then the play for B2B is also entirely different. But to your first question around regulation, that's the first thing you have to do your homework on in going into every market. You need to look at what does the regulation say about going into the market, what is the segment that you're looking to go into. Don't play with the Nigerian government. don't play. Just especially if it's a foreign brand or you're bringing in. You want to make sure that your paperwork is intact, and you make sure that you do your due diligence on that part. When it comes to data privacy, Nigeria has the NDPR, and it will amaze you that these agencies are actually quite active. I've had the opportunity to partner with them and all of that. They are actually quite serious with what they're doing. NITDA, those agencies are quite. You have to do an annual audit actually, especially if you play to the B2C side. Every company, you have to get every year your annual audit and certification, and you see that on the B2B end. Some of the customers start to require, are you NDPR compliant? You have to show that every year you take that certification. So, but it helps as a foreign company because, again, you're held by global standards, you're held by GDPR and all of that, and most of those data privacy laws in Nigeria are extracts of the global rules. So on that side, you tend to play safe, yeah? So that's the first thing you tend to look at. I tend to look at, like, what does the regulations say and how do you take care of that? The second thing you start to look at is what do you want to achieve in the market? Is it a market penetration strategy? Is it a market expansion strategy? Is it a new product that you're launching into the market? So, for example, when I was on the B2B side of things, this was a new product that the market did not know about. By the time I was launching Truecaller had millions of people already in Nigeria. So the play was entirely different again. So you need to find out and ask yourself, what am I doing? And there's a framework for this, and I know that this is a Founders Connect. So it's called the Ansoff Matrix. Go and look for it. So you ask yourself, am I launching a new product in a new market? Am I
bringing in an existing product? Am I deepening my penetration into the market? Which means you already have an existing product. You're just trying to deepen your penetration into the market. Are you diversifying? Right? Do you have an existing brand? Do you have an existing product, and you're looking for other channels, or you're, diversifying your sort of business? There are 4 in that metrics, and I think the other one is like product development, whatever. So you need to find where you sit in that box. That is what determines what your play. That gives you the framework for how you decide to go into the market. In the B2B side, he's spot on. I also like to go in with stealth mode, go under the radar. Don't start wasting investors' money. Don't start, you're the next big thing, all these big, the events are great, but you don't have to be the headliner just yet, right? Because all these things cost you a lot of money. I've been watching Zoho, like their playbook is a very, very good playbook to adopt. Like, they came into the market, they had other people that, were really doing well. They even started pricing in Naira real fast. And that was immediately the dollar thingy came in, and like prior to 2020, when fundraising and all of that was so easy, like paying in dollars wasn't a big deal. Like you give people invoices in dollars, they pay you, it wasn't a big deal. But immediately the dollar issues started and all of that, businesses had to pivot really, really fast and start thinking, how do you start to build in Naira? So you constantly need to do a pestle analysis. What is the political environment? What is the economic environment? What is the social environment? And adapt your model as much as possible to fit that. So that's like on the structure side and all of that. But on the B2C side, you need to look at the product itself. Let me give you a strange example. When I was at Metamop, it was a KYC company, and we were selling identity verification software. We had a simple flow, where we tell people to upload their passport. This was a global stack, right? And we tell people to upload their passport. Guess what? Passport is called passport. International passport, that's what it meant. That's what we're asking people. But people were uploading their passport photograph. Because in Nigeria, when you say to somebody, upload your passport, it's black and white now. Let me go and look for a white background and put my head and all of that. But just that small cultural nuance in a product, it was giving a lot of our customers a lot of false, and we're selling this verification in bulk. So for every count, it goes. And the customer was like, this doesn't make sense. Like, people are putting up passports and it's rejecting them because that's not what the system is wired to do. So in the product itself, you need to ask yourself, as a Nigerian, does this language, does it make sense? And all of that. One of the things we've done in Truecaller, for example, is that we started sending scam alerts in pidgin English for people to understand. Because, and when we went, for example, we were having a conversation, they were like, oh God, let's write everything in pidgin. I'm like, even me, I cannot read pidgin very well. Pidgin is not a language that is read. It's more of a conversational language. So we had to tweak in such a way that you can catch the person's attention in pidgin, and then you take and all of that. So you need to look at your product. There are small things that a Kenyan might see and say, this makes sense. There's something that a Nigerian may see and that makes sense. So those are the kind of things that you look out for. They may be subtle, but for a consumer, if you're building a consumer product, these things are kind of like very intuitive, for the user.
Yeah. I mean, that's extremely helpful as well. I feel like it's a bit odd if you are going into a new market and you don't optimize your product. Whether it's language or copy or marketing or whatever, for those people in the market, and who are you really, selling into? So thank you for that, and I appreciate the B2B and B2C content as well. Thank you. I want to quickly jump back to Chude. You talked a bit about how, for you, it felt like, and tell me if it's the fair thing to say, almost like you kind of, abandoned your initial goal to chase growth, right? And it's just now that you're kind of like, okay, I've sort of having growth, let me go back and find the alignments that I was looking for. And it just points back to, I think we can take this through any industry, and any founder can relate, where sometimes you have to find a middle ground between whether it's like quality or the product and like how fast like you can grow. Talk, and as someone that has, shall I say, studied joy, gratitude, what's the founders who have to make this choice or find this middle ground, what do they miss when it comes to being resilient and just pushing through? Because it does get difficult. It's insanely crazy, especially with the media as well. So what is something, just as someone who has done this, someone who has studied this, what are they missing, and what can they hold on to or point to help them to keep going when they have to just like, I have to sacrifice this thing that meant a lot to me for this or that thing? Wow.
So I'm having an internal board meeting in my head to say, how should we answer this question? Hence the home. But it's a good question. That's why it's making me think. Because the journey, so I turned 40 this year, so people know. And one of the beautiful things about turning 40 is that you have enough time to look back and say, oh, all the things that they said were BS. You have enough evidence in your life to be able to make conclusions about the things that you were told. So the easy answer is to teach people, most people, the practical answer, the useful answer for most people is to teach them how to combine both. Like you said, how do you manage both? But if I gave you that answer, I would be lying. Because in my case, I choose. There's one of the most important books I read, I think it's either The One Thing. It's a book called The One Thing. And it says, and anybody who's, look, I did business school, anybody who's going to be, strategy is a trade-off. And most people fail because they think they can do, so I always joke when I do trainings for CEOs, like, these are our 5 priorities. And like the origin of the word, literally priority should not have a plural. As a company, you should decide this is my priority and everything else is secondary. So it's that entire, as human beings, we don't want to choose, so we handle 2 mediocrities at the same time. Yeah? In my career, and this is what, in my career, I have never chosen, when I came out of university in 2006, I had 5 job offers. I had from Bank PHP, Zenith Bank, Visa Phone, Virgin Nigeria, and GT Bank. Yeah? And I was working at the Nigeria LNG then. I was a youth corps member. And so I had been told, the person, my boss who wanted to retain me, but I didn't have a 2-1, had told me who to go and meet to stay in. And I was like, they need me more than I need them. This is another company, by the way. I'm not going to beg anybody with my, like, I'm proud of my tutu. Very strong tutu, by the way. So out of these 5 job offers, I chose the least paying one. Virgin Nigeria, Donetierbert's Place, 2007. And I chose the least paying one because it was the most joyful one. For 2 reasons. One, I was living in Surulere. Every other office was in VI. Virgin was in Ikeja. I was against traffic. And there is research that shows that the location of the commute to work affects your happiness. I found that out later, but I knew that intuitively. I thought I'm going to spend 2 hours going to work every morning. And I spent, I have great memories. That's also why I bought my first car. But I have great memories of working for Virgin. Because I would go to work every morning and I'd be singing loudly. Because it would take me 20 minutes from Surulere to Mobolaji Bank Anthony. So, and that's been the story of my career ever since. I had a job offer at MTN. I was working for Next Newspapers. They were owing me 3 months' salary already. And yet I said no to MTN. Wow. You understand? Because I was having more fun. And it's not like now that I have privilege. Then I was born in Ijesha, there was no money. But I thought to myself, happiness is more important to me than money. Now, not that happiness is more important to me, that it's not poverty. If it was poverty, it would be a different calculation entirely. But it's not poverty, so I can make a choice. It's the same thing that's happening here. It's the same that's happening where I said, look, I came into this, I left my job at Red Media. Red Media at the time I left was the number one or number two PR agency in the country. Now it's in the top 5, but then it was undisputably number 1 and number 2. We just finished working for the Buhari campaign. We were working in the Ghanaian campaign. We were working in the Senegal campaign. I was speaking all over the world. There was a Forbes profile that had come. I said, no, I'm no longer interested in this business. That's not the time to quit your job. Yeah, but that was the time I decided I don't want to do this anymore. And it's that same choice I made now, which is I came in to do something specific. And I'm still doing it with Chude. But I'm like, now I'm distracted with other things. And it's growing. Revenue is growing, at least last year to this year. Revenue is growing. And I'm like, so it requires me to do more. I have to do more presentations. I have to spend more time in meetings I'm not going to enjoy. I have to pretend to be excited about things I'm not truly excited about. That's not why I quit my job. So what is happening is that I'm choosing, again, my own well-being over growth. Because whenever you hire a CEO, it's a bet. You don't know how the CEO is going to, and because I've handed over, this is my 3rd company I'm handing over to a CEO, you know, and with Red Media, we tried first time, we tried the second time, it failed before we figured it out the 3rd time. You know that the only way it can really work is if you really give the CEO independence. That means that even when you know the CEO is going to fail, a good board member gives advice and says you can take it or not take it. Because if the CEO feels like there are people behind my head who are going to be flogging me, then the CEO doesn't have executive authority. So literally what I'm doing is there's a growing company and I know that I can lead it to keep growing, but I'm taking a risk to say, let me find somebody who may or may not work out. I pray she does. Find somebody who may or may not work out to say, I'd rather lose the momentum than lose my hard-won joy. And for all of us, and it's important for me to say this because I'm living my life in real time. I'm not yet Dangote, we're getting there. I'm not yet Otedola, I'm not yet Sabi. So because if I make that choice in 20 years, so I say it's because he's a billionaire in dollars. No, real time, I'm making choices, financial choices, that optimize my well-being over financial growth and still managing not to be begging you for money. Which means that it is possible to make that strategic choice and still achieve your financial, economic, and well-being goals.
Should it feel like you're an outlier? Because
You would think so, but I'm not. You would think so, but I'm not. There are so many people who make that choice, but they are not public like me. They're chief justices, they're heads of corporate comms, they're MDs. There are so many that do that. There's so many people. One of the failures of Nigerian media is that we don't crystallize enough stories. I found them in my own. I became this because I looked at other role models. You have somebody who says, look, GT Bank was growing when Fola Adeola stepped off as CEO. Many generations don't even know Fola because after Fola Adeola, there was Tayo Adeoku. After Tayo Adeoku, there was Segun Agbaje. There is Segun Agbaje. Do you understand? You had Mukhtar Bakare, who was the head of one of the fastest growing publishing outfits, Farafina, stepped off. People have sold off their companies because they don't want to manage investor relations. And so it's not true. I'm an outlier in my generation that is visible, but I'm not an outlier in the trajectory of Nigeria's corporate history. I was able to do that because when I started doing Red Media 10 years, Biodun Shobanjo, who runs the most financially successful advertising and marketing communication agency in the country, Insight with Defini. When I came out of school, I wanted to join Insight. And then when Biodun was in his 60s, he quit. Why? It's like, I don't want to keep doing this anymore. I don't want to keep doing this anymore. And I remember as a young business owner thinking, is it possible to do this? Or you can just decide that I'm going to do this? And I thought, okay, I'm going to do this before I'm 40. So again, you can see me because I'm looking at other people, and I have chosen to be public about it. And again, it's not as if I said, I hate business. I'm a cat-carrying capitalist. I love capitalism. I love building a business that generates wealth. I love the accountability of the market. I love having to develop a product that goes through the disciplines of meeting market needs. There's a beauty to that. It's like art. So I'm not saying, I woke up one morning and decided business is a devilish thing and I don't like money. I do love money. But I'm saying that there is a way that you can grow your business and still make a choice to prioritize your well-being. And at every point in my career, I have made that choice.
I think the struggle with a lot of other people is just finding that balance that you have managed to find. And what I'm hearing is also that early on you had, because you can't become what you can't see, right? So early on you had like a lot of examples of people who were able to make like those choices, and then it just became suddenly possible for you, like, oh, I can actually do this.
Yes.
And perhaps that is part of what is currently missing.
That's why we're here. The reason why we're all sharing our stories here is so people can hear things that they might not have heard before.
And also, what I'm picking up is you're also saying, like, sometimes finding that middle ground might be very tricky, that you just have to make a choice. Like,
Sometimes there's no middle ground. In this case, there's a middle ground. You can, there's no, but sometimes, so in this case, there's a middle ground. Everybody shouldn't do that. But there are some places where there is no middle ground. And honestly, and this is life, there are some places where you have to choose. If, for instance, I had a dyslexic child and I had a high-powered career and I was the mother in a patriarchal society, I will have to choose. That's what I'm saying. So there are times when, and people we say, it's like work-life balance. I just say it's work-life balancing. There's no day when it is balanced. It's like wheel balancing. As you're driving, you're going, and anybody who tells you that, and there are some years where you're in a business and years where you cannot be balanced, and you should not be balanced. You understand? At that time, it's extreme. At that time, if you have a relationship, instead of the person is understanding, or you step off a relationship, not punish somebody else's child with your single-mindedness. But there are times in your life when you have to choose. And people don't want to tell you that truth at those times. So they tell you you can manage it. And what you do is that you manage two mediocrities at the same time. But if it's a choice where you have to choose to be excellent, then you have to choose. And for example, in my life, happiness is most important to me. So that's why I make those choices that I make.
So I think so.
Exactly.
Let me bring it to you, and maybe I want more specific to Zoho, but I'm happy if you have like other unrelated examples. Like, what are the very specific trade-offs in the expansion to Nigeria that you had to make? Like that you knew, like, this is probably very important, but just based on, I don't know, whether it's budgeting, whether it's like operations, like we have to prioritize and focus on this versus this. And I'm specifically asking because especially a lot of, I guess, people in early on in their careers, like in similar roles as well, or even young founders, also struggle when they have to, like, they're trying to do everything at once, and they also struggle, and it just ends up being, if you had picked two things and focused, like you would have done a better job. So give me an example of like the trade-off you had to make and why, and I guess what the middle ground is, like, are you coming back to that in your expansion, or is it just, it's gone?
That's very interesting. My own trade-off is the exact opposite of Chude. I guess the truth is that when I was starting my career, it was not in my intention to become a country manager of a multinational tech company. I just want to work, have a good life, have family, and start. However, 2020, that was when it changed, and then you now see what the potential of what this can be, right? And then my trade-off was, I would say, maybe my happiness and my time, right? And right now, I can boldly say it. In fact, I'm actually very happy now that I did that trade-off earlier on in my career. I work for a multinational company that we have presence in more than 80 countries. I am the only black person in the C-level executive in Zoho today. Now, you can imagine that when I go to the boardroom or any meeting, it is difficult for them to get to me to hear what I have to say. So they make decisions. So I say my teams are here. So sometimes they make decisions and they hand it over to you to execute. Now, as a Nigerian man, I think I have a very calm demeanor. But then the moment I enter the room, they feel like I'm aggressive. You get what I'm saying? When I'm saying that, okay, or when they are saying something I'm not in alignment with that, my face would change and I'm like, no. But then it's your boss. they've been in the business. The role I'm currently sitting in right now, it would take somebody 10 years of experience in Zoho to get to that role. I got there within a year. So I have no experience. So I have to take my time to understudy a lot of people and also trade off my happiness. So I have to prove myself. Yes, trade off my happiness. Because, see, the truth is when you're working with a lot of people, you need to understand them. I am not a people pleaser, but I have to get to that. I had to please people to get my way. In 2022, for example, they were making decisions about Nigeria market and Kenya market. Now, Lagos is popular for traffic, and then the people on my team that time, they complained about traffic and all of that, so they probably complained to their colleague abroad and all of that, and they were like, oh, Kenny, is it possible to probably just get an apartment closer to the office, people can sleep in and all of that, And I said, no, I do not want that. The reason, so yes, when I told my team, when I said no. So the trade-off is that if I had agreed or implemented that thought process, it would be difficult for me to increase my salary for my team members. Because ordinarily, there is already a cap. But then I'm like, no, we cannot stay. We need to double in the next 6 months. So I keep doing it every 3 months, every 4 months, I review salary, because if I'm paying somebody 600,000 right now, I can't just go to 1.2 million next appraisal cycle. But then what I've done is that I look at the economy and I'm like, you know what? The traffic is for our own good. Guys, don't worry. Take Uber, I will pay for your Uber. You get what I'm saying? Come to work, come late, check in at any time. So you need to understand the playing field, right? And then building Zoho in Nigeria, I go to those boardrooms, I'm already guilty because I'm aggressive and all of that. I have to keep calm, listen to them, understand them from their own point of view. Now, I need to come back to Nigeria and implement what I think is good, like as if it is their decision. You get what I'm saying? When you're trying to say that, so in 2020, we introduced the Naira pricing, right? And then when I brought the topic up that we need to start building Nigerians in Naira, as of 2020, they were like, no, the exchange rate, blah, blah, blah. Now, remember 2020, there was this cap on $20 per month from Buhari administration. Now, we had a lot of money stuck in Nigeria that people cannot pay for their subscription. So I'm like, okay, we need to start paying in Naira. They're like, it took us about a year to get, we are using Paystack. It took us about a year to get all of that sorted, but I was happy. Now, we paid in Naira. We started billing Nigerians in Naira. They didn't understand why, right? They didn't understand. They were like, okay, eventually, maybe after 6 months, we'll revert back to dollars. Guess what? We started billing in Naira. Within 3 months, our revenue grew by 272% in 3 months. And that is when you convert Naira to USD. Now, dollar was maybe 350, 300. Then 2021, we had about 71% growth in revenue between 2020 2021. That is when other countries that are billing in Naira, billing in US dollars, they are in deficit because of COVID. But in Nigeria, they can see the uptick, right? And then 2022. So that is one example. Now, my happiness that I sacrifice is that I have to be in every meeting. I have to know what they are thinking. I need to be able to implement right on time. I also need to build a team that understands my vision for the company in Nigeria. So I need to sit them down. Now imagine when I tell them that, guys, we can't get you an apartment close to the office. You need to go home and come back. I need to be able to communicate that with them. They will hate me. A couple of them hated me for a very long time. But then, in retrospect, it was a good decision for them because where they are now, they probably wouldn't have gotten there as fast as they did. So happiness. But now, 2025, right?
So again, it's kind of proving the point of sometimes you really have to manage both. You have to choose. So for you, it was at the early stage, you needed to do some things that you weren't comfortable doing to get to a certain place where you are now comfortable enough to make better decisions for yourself and for your team. So it's like, for you, it's like, this is what is important now. So I'm going to talk it out now, go through this thing of people thinking I'm aggressive because I'm black, so that I get to this place where I can now be the decision maker. And I think that's interesting, and I think that a lot of you can actually relate to that. I have been told that we need to go to audience Q&A, but I really want you to answer.
I was going to say one other thing. For Nigerian business owners or even startup founders, people have this perception that you don't have to like you, just send the product. I can tell you that they need to like you. Your partners, they need to love you. When they look at you, even in corporate world, for you to scale up rapidly, they need to like you. They need to think you are their friend. You don't have to be their friend, but they have to assume you are their friend, and it will help you in a lot of ways. It will open doors for you. You have information that you're not supposed to even have in the first place. So that's one other thing.
Yeah. Okay, just to add my perspective. Yeah. Just feeding off of his last points. I know there are a lot of founders here, and there's something, founder-led sales is very important. You need to be the face of your business at the level that you are. You need to be the chief marketing officer of your brand. But to the point, the trade-offs that I had to make, okay, I'll talk first of all from the business point of view and my personal, the personal trade-offs I had to make. So the first trade-off I had to make, and the most painful trade-off that I had to make, was in terms of people, resources. And this was when I was leading a B2B team. And typically I learned this. I didn't learn the first company that I was part of the team that launched into Nigeria. I wasn't at leadership. The second, I was in leadership. I'm in leadership. But at the first point, I wasn't in leadership. And when we launched that company, we were blowing money, you know how they blow money. We had an office in the Ikoyi, and we're paying the rent. This was 2016, and we're paying as much as 500,000 USD as rent. And everybody in the company did not have car park space. So if you wanted additional, there were just a few people that had. So if you wanted, you pay additional, I think like $2,000 or $500,000 for additional car park space for a place in the Ikoyi. And then one day they just gathered all of us like this and said we should go home, So and that was they just gathered all of us and just said we should go home, right? And I carried that that burden, and I was doing well, and again I didn't know what was happening in the company. Of course, I wasn't very senior at the time, so they just said everybody should go home. But and then they just gathered us literally like this. And somebody just stood in front of a table and said we should go. I didn't understand it. Like, we were blowing money. Like, even the previous day, we had just, they told us, go to a hotel, go and sleep, do whatever you want. So that was the first time. The second time, and then a lot of times when companies want to come into Nigeria, and then, I did, even the second time, because I went from, what you call a frontline manager to a director overnight. So again, I had the personal capacity to build and had that boldness to, but now I tell you point blank, there are people that come to meet me and say, oh, Ogo, we want you to help us launch this company in Nigeria. And I'm like, you're not ready yet. I look at what you want to do and I tell you, I don't feel bad. I tell you point blank, this is not going to work and I'm not going to put my name to this. But then I didn't have that much confidence. Again, just to this earlier point to say, you will not always have it figured out. Like, just take it one step at a time, and your confidence will grow. So the second time we were launching again, and we went big on people, and then time and time again they'll ask me and say, Ogo, you need to reduce your market we need you to cut down your market by $250,000. So, and the biggest people I had to let go were people. So it was always painful. Those were the kind of trade-offs that I had to make to keep the business afloat. So again, my point here is you do not have to have a big, keep looking at your costs. At every point in time, look at your costs, look at your people cost and all of that. Now, and I believe you me, there is talent in Nigeria. I'm so proud of the talent that we have here. They can match anywhere, they match global standards. So what I've done and the trade-offs I've had to make is I always go lean. I start very, very lean. I start with bare bones. I start with very, very bare bones. Yeah, I start with bare bones so that when we're now comfortable, I can now start. I'd rather have 3 people that know exactly that, and I'm paying them a shit ton of money, and they're having a great time doing the work, and everybody's fine. than having 10, 15 people, 20 people, and then every day I have to gather them and say, we have to pack this up. Remember, there are families that are dependent on this. And these people leave jobs to come and join you to do great work. So I always start with a lean structure. So as much as possible, start with a lean structure. So that's one trade-off I'll talk about on the expansion side. But on the personal side, and life is in phases, right? Life is in phases. It won't always be like this. Just know that it won't always be like this. I've come to the phase where I can look back and, working with Europeans is a bit more flexible, but sometimes in the previous company I was working with American, it was an American company, so the hours were mad. There were times in my life that I wake up like 6, 7 Nigerian time. I would have meetings for Nigerian, all the Nigerian meetings till 5 p.m. From 5 p.m. I'll start with my finance team in the US, and we'll have all the meetings, and then around 9, 10, from 1 in the afternoon, I'll start talking to the people in LATAM. By 5 p.m., I'm talking to the people in the US, and then by 10 p.m. and all of that, by midnight, we'll now start talking to our partners in Australia, and then I would finish like 2 a.m. in the morning, and then I would have to spend another 1 hour to do administrative stuff, right? And I was like this, I was really massive, because I literally just sit out in one spot. They would just bring my food, and I didn't realize how unhealthy I was. I didn't realize how I was, So I wasn't seeing my child. I could take off. I would just be like, somebody would just pass. I was just like, is that you? It'd be like, mommy, is that you? I was like, yes, it's me. It's like, hello. I'm like, hello. And then we just move on, right? So those are the trade-offs that I had to make. As a woman, I also, and I'm going to be open about this, right? Growing up, I really wanted more children, but also my ambition for, being a super career, I ended up having 1 kid. I'm happy with that, but that's a trade-off I had to make, but I have to live with that, but that's a trade-off you honestly have to make as a woman.
General consensus is something to do, so choose what you want to lose, and then be okay with the decision. That was really good. Can we clap for them? Let's do audience Q&As. I would love to spend more time, but we are out of time. So if anyone has a question, please just raise your hand. And I think you can get the mic. You can use mine. And so you just say your name, who the question is directed at, and what the question is. There's no need to tell them thank you for the panel. Just ask the question. So anyone? I'll be so surprised. No, I'm always suspicious. You should tell me every single thing.
Good evening. Thank you for. Yeah. But straight to the point. For founders, because that's what we're here for, right? In Nigeria, we're starting up. We don't know anything about anything, except for that we want to start something. What is the most important piece of advice you can give people starting up in this space, especially in terms of scaling and in terms of navigating the whole Nigeria? You've talked about it a little bit before. For people on our level, what can you tell us?
Who's the question for?
I think it's directed to Ms. Ogo Onwuchekwa and possibly Mr. Kehinde, if possible. So, anyway.
Okay. First of all, the first thing I'll say to you is you need to validate your concepts. You have to have a group of concepts of what you want to do. Whatever idea that it is that you have, you're building for Nigeria, you need to have a proof of that concept. And that proof of concept is not what you think that concept is. It is what the customer or the person, the user, if it's a B2C product, it is what that person says it is, that is what it is. You need to find that proof of concept. So if you're building for B2B, make sure that there is a customer or even if it means doing a freemium for starters, because sometimes if you're at the very early stages, people might not want to pay yet, just yet, for the product. If it's a B2C product, don't gas yourselves up. You know, you gather 2 or 3 and say, we are like you said, we are out to revolutionize those. So, once they come, I say nobody should revolutionize. Let us win it. Let's not do that thing. Nobody should revolutionize anything. Do you understand that? But my point is, you need to validate that idea. You need to test that idea. You need to be patient enough to pilot it in very, very small doses. You need to listen to the voice of the customer. At that point in time, you need to be customer obsessed. What is the customer saying about this thing? It's not what you think about it and all of that. So, it depends. I will give a bit more context to what you're building to give you answer. But I think the most important thing is where somebody validates and says, this idea that you have is a good idea. Sometimes you may be too early. You will be too early. You might come and people will say like, this thing doesn't make sense. Chude is here. He was saying that by the time he wanted to meet Chude, it took to 2022. Nobody, you may be too early. So sometimes when people say no, or this doesn't make sense, it might not necessarily be the proof of that idea. But again, the answer is, it depends. I'll give you a bit more context to sort of answer your question, but very more question.
In addition to that, I will also probably advise you to not forget the business part of whatever you're founding. So as you're building something, also build process. Build that process. It is very important. It's easier for you when it's just you and you know all the money, all the sales, the government relations, the certification you need to get. It is very important for you to not forget the business. So the business needs you to have tools in place to keep your record. A couple of us don't know what the first customer is or what. Whether they are still with you, what is the life cycle of your customer, the first one, why did they drop off? So when you build the business alongside the products, it will be very helpful for you in the future. So build the business, put the process in place, and it will help your business.
All right, thank you. So just to summarize, to make sure I got the point right, that start small, MVP, then lean. Then while you're doing that, make sure that you have your operations in check so that you can scale up on that. All right. Thank you very much.
And don't be ashamed. And don't be ashamed to copy. No, don't be ashamed to copy. Yeah, just mean if you changes here and there. There are some people in Germany that are making a shit ton of money from just replicating Amazon in that country. It doesn't need to be in you a right idea. Not everybody is blessed with ideas. But if you're more efficient, you should go to market and all of that, you might.
All right.
If you are too shy to ask a question, you can write it down on a piece of paper and hand to me. As the director manager and pass it to me. I've been told some people are shy.
So I have a question. Yeah, good evening, everyone. So my question is directed to Chude and Kenny and Ogo. So yeah, well, I'll start with Chude. Again, I've been running business for like 3 years or 4 years now. And I think that there's always something that we probably imbibed in, like customer is king. But I've realized that, in Nigeria, customer can also bastardize the idea of customer is king. In the context of, I run an event company. There's a recent issue that happened where the customer canceled event as late as 5 p.m. And by 10 p.m., she was like, okay, you know what, let's get it done. Now the event's happening 9 a.m. the following day. And they were asking for a refund, which was not going to work because we already paid our vendor. Now, we carry out the event. Of course, there were a little bit of delay and all of that. Now, there's another issue of you guys are not competent. Now, there was no point of, what's the word now? The conversion that was had. So it's not a conversion of, you guys could have pulled it through. So now the question now is, how do you bridge the gap between, of course, you're also not trying to lose money as a business, because again, especially in our own market where you are a bridge between two markets, the vendor, yourself, and the client. So which once you've paid the vendor, you're obviously in the middle, and you can't do so many things. So what's your advice to business owners? Of course, they are probably in different markets, but they are probably going through this. And how do you advise that we manage the customer is king mindsets and not being so, how's the word now? Not being so swayed by that idea, and also being firm about your business, understand that you want the right thing for your business, and so forth and so on. So that's a question, just so I can ask. Then also to my leaders. Everybody wants to build. Everybody wants to find a business because, again, they believe that building for people with people is stressful. I'm not the one making most of the money. The CEOs, founders are the one enjoying, having fun. My question is this: what would you say about someone having to grow, in within an organization to even be, what's the word now? Someone that can now lead a company, not being a founder, but of course, more like a country manager and being an indirect CEO, because at the end of the day, it's something of such. What advice would you give to such people? And what kind of mindset do you think they should have? Because obviously, if you are an entrepreneur by nature, there's a different build. We are built differently. If you're not built like that, you can't have it. It's like, if you don't have it, you can't, just forget about it. So what would you advise those kind of people? And how do you think, or what are the things that they should pay more attention to, and they should be more intentional?
Can we switch questions? So I'm going to move it to them for this reason. As we're talking, you mentioned it occurred to me. So we're doing a mid-year review for JoyInc. And I realized, yes, middle of this year, and I said, oh my God, this has become a service business. And it was started as a product business, so not all of the switches. And then I hate service businesses. And I'm like, and I hate service businesses because I was paying myself for the customer. I do take it seriously, the customer is always right. And I wrote a entire article series about customer-centric behavior. But fundamentally, I'm misaligned with that. So while I believe it intellectually, when I'm a creative.
Yeah.
So that means that I have a strong point of view as to the product, as to the delivery, the value chain. And so intellectually I know that, well, the customer is saying rubbish, but he's right, or she's right. And so I have to structure myself and say, oh, okay, well, if it's right, and then realize that becomes a problem because in an organization, the entire, no matter how clean the structure is, processes take on the character of leadership. So if the leader is, the first instinct of the leader is to argue with the customer, then everybody else learns to argue with the customer. And so we're having a service issue in the company, and I'm like, and they were saying this way, and I'm like, it's me, I'm the bad influence on you guys. Because what you should do is immediately switch. So the whole foundation of design thinking, when it comes to product, is that you think like the consumer. So you don't think like the developer, say, this is how this should run. Think like which one you were saying about the Truecaller, about the passport thing. Yeah. You think, what does the customer think passport is? Not what do I think passport is. But in service businesses, you have to think like the customer. So if you are food delivery company, I'm consulting for a food delivery company now. And I'm like, and they're having problems with their drivers. I'm like, you have to think like the driver.
Yeah.
You have to, so before you even think about the customer, because the driver is the sticky point. The driver is one saying, Madam, I'm downstairs, what's happening here? And I'm like, what are the drivers? And then the drivers are illiterate. I'm like, but when you were coming to this market, we're not aware of the education system in the country. I'm like, first, take on the shoes of the driver, understand what is causing the frustrations, take on the shoe of the customer who is dealing with the driver, understand what's causing the frustration. The one perspective you should not even take is yours.
Yes.
If you're dealing with nobody forced you to do a delivery, nobody forced you to do a customer B2C business, it's service business in and of itself. The one point of view you must suspend is yours. The one. And that's the whole point of the customer being king. You have to understand, those of us who are born in a democracy don't understand what a king is. A king, once a king says something, it's all. Even if you know the king is wrong, you have no power in that relationship. a king-servant relationship is a relationship where one party has zero power and zero agency. That is the foundation of customer service. The theories of customer service is that in this relationship, all the power belongs to this person. Now, the rightness is not that the person is intellectually or logically right. The rightness is the rightness of power. The person is the one buying the product, so the person is the one that has all the power, so the person is the one that is right. Once you suspend your point of view in that respect, it becomes easy to not argue with processes that don't make the customer happy. I say to my people sometimes, if the customer is not happy, we are wrong. You say, but the customer, if the customer isn't happy, we are wrong. It means, and then I had somebody said, but the person was being on this paper. So it's our job as a company to learn how to deal effectively with unreasonable people. So, but once you do that, so again, the point of view is not yours. The point of view is constantly the customer's. As small businesses, it's like if you sell things on Instagram and say to order this product, call 080-932. The first question is, where do I buy this product? And most small businesses are like, why are these people not paying attention? We don't have the time for that. You see, and when you answer, you say, but as I just said, no, you're not taking the point of view of the customer. I'm just saying, imagine that your customer just came back from work, has 2 kids, never has just taken that. Generator is not working. She's trying to make an order. That's what it means to take on the perspective of the customer. When you do that, you realize, oh, I understand why she didn't see that message. She just saw Truecaller or whatever it is you're selling. When you take that perspective, you don't even argue. So when she says, if you're watching the person, if it was you, and you're trying to get 2 kids to be quiet, and you're calling the person, you're like, oh, sorry, I'm trying to order. What's the number? If you take my perspective, you're not going to tell me, but the number is on the post. You're maybe going to say, oh, thank you for calling us. I'm sorry, is that your kid behind the thing? Oh, please say hello to him, and then you give the person the information that they need. The suspension of your point of view is the most important factor for customer service success. The suspension of your point of view.
Thank you. All right. I think you actually answered.
Yes, I did.
And another thing you need to also be ready to do is to have most of this conversation or communication in writing. So in your own case, the customer has paid for the service, they cancel you, they come back 4 hours later to say truth immediately. It's impossible for you to carry out that project within that timeline. So if you had originally have probably an SOW, scope of work in place, that this states the timeline accurately, you can't use that to say, I'm sorry, but we will try our best. Customers are always right. They will all the time. Right? See, I work at Zoho. Trust me. I get calls every day.
All 3 companies.
I get calls every day. Even today at brunch with Zoho, I received 2 calls telling me that someone beside me has not been responding to their email. I can't say, we are busy now. No, I'm so sorry. Let me call the person now. You know what I'm saying? You need to make them see why it's not working or why it's been working this time frame. Not that it's not going to work, right? And also, I will tell my team members when you call your customer or you chat with them on WhatsApp, do an email follow up. So the email follow up is your own saving grace. So when they escalate to me, I will look at that and I will be like, okay, you've done what you're supposed to do, and then you will hand me. If there is no email communication that clearly states what you discussed over the phone, the customer will come back and say, no, I can't remember that conversation. And then I can now ask on you and be like, what have you been doing? You get what I'm saying? So try and have a written document to clearly state the deliverables, the timeline, and all of that to save you a lot of headache and hassle. And to just answer the second one about scaling in the corporate world, I think you need to have the ownership mindset. That is the only thing. When you take it, so even my mother before she passed, they called me Mr. Zoho. She called me Mr. Zoho. Hey, Mr. Zoho, how are you? Where are you now? You know what I'm saying? So take ownership. That is when you can scale. That's when you see loopholes. That's when you see that, okay, this thing is not working properly. How can I fix it? You don't need the manager to be after you all the time to fix that problem. You will fix it because you are part of that system, and because you are part of that system, you want to make it better. And also, when you do that, you deliver value to the end users. So the value you deliver to the end user is the experience, and that is what you're going to go with from that company to the next company. I will tell my team every time, See, forget about selling Zoho. What are you building for yourself? You have to communicate software properly. You need for you to sit down and sell Zoho to people. That means you're training yourself as well. You close a $20,000 deal, $20,000 deal. How did you communicate at that level to get that money out? You're going to start your own business tomorrow, you will use the same experience to do that. But if you dream someone's work as if it's a multinational, I just want to collect salary, you will not learn. You just do the barest minimum and you will, trust me, you will not last. You can easily be replaced. But it's very, very difficult to replace people that are part of the organization and they've integrated well into the system. So, and you have to put yourself in that shoe. So, on the product, if you're a salesperson, marketing person, just look at it. It is not trying not to take like a marketer. Because for me, marketing should be minimum spending. But they are telling me now that you have to spend a lot of money. You need to shout. You know, it's colorful. I don't mind colors. When I'm seeing billboard and I'm seeing yellow, green, purple, I'm like, choose it. They have to tell me that that's not for me. It's for the end users, you know. So I'm learning to now delegate now, you know, but they have to own it. They need to be able to communicate that to me. Like, hey, see, let's try. Let's give it a try. You get what I'm saying? So ownership, I think, is the key thing in the corporate setting to be able to scale.
Okay, thanks. I mean, to the first point around the service, Shay, we had this conversation, right? And you see, it's the same thing, perspective. You remember, that's the word I think we talked about that day. How you view everything is how it is. We don't see the world as it is. We see the world as we are. You see the world as we are. I think. First of all, I don't think as a people we give great service. The countries that you go to, from the airport, everybody is so, especially because maybe their economy. Service-based economy, maybe also have all this hospitality, their whole ecosystem is built around that. So everybody, has that service mindset, So what I'll just lay on top of what every other person has said is, it's not our default, to be honest. So we need to learn to train ourselves and retrain ourselves. And you see the point that Dave would be processes. You see the point that you made around your perspective or your view is not what is important. So you need to keep drumming it down your staff. Like, is it the customers are reasonable? The customers was rude. You need to keep drumming it into them until it becomes a culture in your organization and everybody learns to reframe and think that way. They wouldn't get it the first time. So I always have a post-mortem every time you have an event. Whether it went great or it did not go great, always what can we learn? What can we do? Remember that our point of view is not what is important. So by the time you make that a mantra within your organization, everybody understands it, from the driver to the salesperson to the hostesses, and everybody gets it into their head that our point of view is not what is important. It's the customer's point of view that is important. You will not get it overnight. It might take you 1 year of dropping it into but you gradually see that happen in your organization. As people join the organization and as people are leaving, that's how culture is built. You have to make sure that at the entry point, people are getting it. If you're hiring somebody and the person is already showing some type of way, you know, this is not the type of person that will be in this place. Because again, no matter how talented that person is, because of the culture that you want to build. If you already have a team, and this is the culture that you want to build, you need to drum it and drum it and drum it. Post-mortem, even you that is the CEO, you need to also train yourself. And my perspective is my company. I say what happens. No. So that's the part I want to emphasize, that we need to keep at these things. Excellence is not it's repeated. That's how you get it.
It's hard. No, sorry. No, sorry. Let's do it this way. Our hand has been off stage. We can only take one more. Excuse me, we can only take one more question after her. So what's going to happen is during the networking events, you can then ask all your questions. So they are going to be here for a while after. So we cannot one. It's going to be sorry. Shahan has been up even before you. So you actually joined the queue.
Organic ginger. So a few years ago, our farms were being attacked by fungal infection, and most of our farmers lost their products. That was the beginning of the disaster of organic ginger in Nigeria. But my two reasons are we've been farming ginger like all our lives, and the fake ginger got into the market. And when we were able to bounce back, it became a problem to most of the farmers, and I decided to start creating awareness about the authentic southern Lebanon ginger because we're the largest producer of ginger in Africa, southern Lebanon. And I started this issue of if my ginger were real and organic. I won't blame people because the fake were all over the market, and I took it upon myself. We already have customers, people buy from us. So we already had customers, but I just wanted to create that awareness that there was still the organic ginger was still out there, but not everybody had. We are among the few people that had it. So most of the time I usually get, oh, how do I know your ginger is original? And I took it upon myself. They send free ginger to people. And if it gets to you, you want to patronize it. I would say it was ridiculous. But I wanted people to still know that we, the Southern Lebanon farmers, still have the ginger out there. So when the ginger gets to you and you still want to patronize us, you come, and people were buying, and since I took over the business, I've never refunded anybody's money. People that have bought from me on social media come back, and the business have been booming. But I still get the question like, oh, send me free ginger, and I stopped. And I'm so confident that if you don't want to buy, you leave it. And I will tell you that I sell one of the best ginger, dry or fresh. If you want to buy, you go ahead. But recently, 2 weeks ago, we started facing logistic issue. Because the demand was high, and one of the issues was someone ordered ginger seedling and he didn't get to the person on time. I apologized, and he said no problem, and I took it upon myself that I was going to do a private delivery to his farm. And when he got to his farm, he was like, it was bad seedlings. Meanwhile, that was one of the best seedlings I got for him. He was like, he was requesting for a refund and started threatening me with lawsuits that he doesn't mind if he was going to spend all his money to drag me to court. And I have a lawyer in my company.
Sorry, hold on. So I'm just trying to get to it. So the question is essentially, it seems like there's a trust issue where people are doubting, and there's also a logistic issue.
Yes.
And so are you looking to get answers onto maybe how to build trust and how to solve for, so the issue about logistics, is it in Kaduna or is it in Lagos?
It's
Or do you deliver like across?
Yes, I across.
Okay, so it's Nigeria.
Yes, it's
okay.
Nigeria.
So who do you want to answer the question?
It's fine by me.
Okay, so who wants to take this one? So she's looking for how to build trust, and I guess that also extends to even logistics.
Just in case our answers are short, there's an excellent interview that Ebi Atawode, I think, was the director of marketing communication at ETC. She did with Fatu Oguchi on Beehive. And it was specifically about a similar problem. There was an agri-tech company that she was brought in as an interim CEO because there was a break in the trust loop, during COVID. And she broke down how she helped the company rebuild trust, and in that case, they were even in debt, and they didn't even know, and they were taking loans, and interest was piling up. So a lot of the things you were saying, I was just thinking about that interview. It's a fantastic interview that Ebi Atawode had with Fatu Oguchi. If you just search those words, you'll answer, but for a more detailed deep dive, that's a fantastic interview for you.
When you were speaking, what was just coming into my head was, is the problem bigger than you? Like,
Southern Canada is Southern Canada. You know, sometimes you just have I want to frame it the right way, but sometimes you ask yourself, is this my battle really?
So just think about that. I don't have an answer for you. So just think about it. Is this really my battle? So which one is your battle in that your business? Try and focus on that. If it's the logistics, before they use police and come and carry you, proving to the whole Nigeria that organic, it's a federal government issue, eh?
And also, in addition to that, I also, like she said, we have to break down your process, break it down into smaller steps. Where is the problem coming from? Number one, who are your customers? And you go back to them to do a video testimonials for you, right? So instead of you telling people that my product is good, they will be saying it, and you can post, repost, let them share. You are using social media, I believe. If you have a website, get customer testimonial, right? Get recommendation, get people that can vouch for you, post it. Also try to so 2 ways. You can think bigger, think Nigeria as a whole. However, I would say start small, right? Get suppliers in Kaduna, in Kano, in areas that are closer to you, that they can actually sell that product. People will go to those cities, they will buy it, they will see the label, and branding is very important as well too. So make sure your branding is very unique. And then quality assurance, quality control. When you see to all these steps, it will improve your image in the market, and it's a gradual process. It won't change overnight, right? It's a gradual process that you need to walk through, and just look at it and start with the smallest part, then eventually it will grow into better brand image.
Oof. All right. Thank you very much. I think we are out of time. I want to say thank you very much to you three for just fantastic answers, for your patience, and I guess for listening and for being here. Can we please give them a round of applause, please? Thank you so much. So, if you have any questions, please meet them after. They are here for a while, but we were out of time. I'm going to hand it back to our awesome. Do you want to come over? Our awesome MC, just to wrap things up, and then we can go into networking and you can ambush them.